Oakley dokley neighbourinos. Let's have a look at what's been going on. It's funny, I say Oakley dokley, and I think Ned Flanders, and actually Mr. Seymour does come to mind. I don't know why he does, but that seems to fit in there quite well. We want to ask you something as well, Bomber, because you've told us on a separate occasion how much of a smart operator Mr. Seymour actually is. And over the last couple of days, we've been questioning that. So before we get into the story, just give us again the rundown. I mean, you think he's a really smart operator from your interactions with him, but how have you been seeing his general performance in this first part of the year?
Oh, look, I think he's one of the smartest politicians we have in the House, and I think that their manoeuvring with Luxon has handed them and been able to give them so much power. I mean, it's remarkable for a party that barely got 8% that they are, just running the legislative agenda here. And I think that they have been able to get so much more through and past Luxon than they thought.
Yeah.
Look at this business with the school lunches. I mean, he is talking about a 30 to 50% cut in funding, 30 to 50% cut for the most vulnerable children amongst us. And he looks like he's going to get away with it. I mean, it's bewildering as it is to suggest. I think that National and the internal runnings of National are so out of kilter that New Zealand First and ACT are running the entire legislative agenda. So I think in terms of getting the stuff through that he wants, it's magnificent. The arguments that they're using, they're all bullshit, absolute total bullshit. But that just gives you an idea of how much power they've got, that he's able to get this stuff this far along.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to start off with tonight. And actually, we see memes on the internet, right? And there's that one, I think it's from the movie Friday, where someone has a shock and a whole front yard of guys go, whoa, like that. There's a moment here that I might even cut this video after Daniel Faitaua talks that it requires a whoa, because he goes, there's no research. And Daniel Faitaua goes, actually, here's some research. Boom! So let's have a look. Where are we starting? Okay, yeah, that's actually where we're starting from. This is also bounced off the back of prior to the election, Mr. Seymour. This is almost the worst thing. Mr. Seymour called feeding hungry children a, quote, marketing stunt.
Yep.
That was how he referenced it, as a marketing stunt. Here's my music playing. I should turn that off, music. There we go. That's my little tester. So he thinks it's a marketing stunt, and he's trying to get rid of it. And he goes down this line of no research. Let it play out, and we'll see what he had to say on breakfast this morning.
The Ministry of Education, despite spending $350 million a year, does not have any hard data, and the Treasury have said this, the other government department that monitors spending, any hard evidence that it's making a difference for kids across the board. And then
there is evidence, Minister, if I could just jump in there. There is evidence that's come through from the University of Auckland, who's reviewed the ka ora ka ako back in 2023, June last.
There's also more evidence out today from Massey University, which we'll share at the end.
Last year, research has found that it enriched school environment.
And be very aware what happens here, right? I will walk this process through with you. He says no evidence, okay? That's where we are right now.
Ka ora ka ako back in 2023, June last year, research has found that it enriched school environments, boosted local economies, enhanced availability and affordability of healthy foods. And you discussed that there's been a drop in schools, but the main finding was the issue was more widespread than they had detected.
Well, I don't know what they mean by widespread, but from what you've just said...
Well, I think they mean that more schools do need this program to help their students be nourished and also perform better in schools.
And with respect...
That's kind of the whoa moment. Okay, no data, there's data. But of course, I've written down the process of what happens, and this is what I've written, okay?
Yep.
Seymour says no data. Yes. Daniel says yes data. Seymour's about to say not the right data.
Yes.
Daniel gives more data.
Yes.
And then Seymour says, still not the right data and you're biased. That's what we're about to watch. This is the communication.
Yeah.
But again, we need to raise the standards of debate here because if they were doing a serious study,
not
they
the right
would have
data.
asked for the schools that received these free school lunches, can we see improvements in attendance? Can we see improvement in achievement? Now, the Ministry of Education under the previous government, when they decided to spend all this money, went off and did 5 different studies, and none of them asked the basic question: if we compare the students that got the free school lunches with the students that didn't, have we seen an improvement?
So this is a very deceptive thing he's doing. So what he's doing is, if we compare the most vulnerable children with children who are not vulnerable, if we compare the children from the most vulnerable communities, the poorest, let's be honest, the brownest communities, and they get given food, how does it compare to and I'll use this for exaggerative purposes, the wealthy white kids from Remuera in central Auckland? That's not a question that this needs to look at. What the question is these kids who get food, how do they compare to themselves when they weren't? That's actually the question. But what he's saying is we've got no data that says how do these hard up kids compare to the ones that aren't hard up. That's irrelevant in this research. Do you want to add anything before we keep going, Bomber?
Well, he philosophically opposes the state feeding hungry children who
Oh, God. You just said that out loud. Can you believe what you just said out loud?
That's exactly. Let's not mess around.
Yeah.
David and the ACT Party philosophically don't believe the state should be feeding hungry children. Their argument is that parents should, and their position is, well, if the parent can't afford them, why should the state? It's not our problem. Own your problem. Now, that's a very far right libertarian me mind space, and the idea that he's in charge of resourcing these free school lunches. It's like getting someone who hates dogs to run a puppy store, right? He hates dogs. And yet he's running a puppy. Well, what do you think he's going to do to the puppies? And this is the same minister who is threatening fines for children's parents who are truant. Well, feeding these hungry kids is a silver bullet for that truancy, but he doesn't want to feed them, and he wants to fine the parents as well. It's like with this new government, there's no carrot, it's just stick.
Yeah.
And then there's some more stick. And kids can't eat sticks. And so the idea that someone who is so opposed to the state helping the children of the poorest, that he's the one who's making the decision, is just, it's like allowing the fox in charge of the chicken
The hen
roast.
house.
And you can't allow this to be serious policy. This guy has a history of enjoying vandalizing social policy just for ideological gain. And what he's doing here, look, when he says there's no evidence that it works, look, we were going through COVID. We had all of the problems during that bumpy time with truancy. To try and compare this period of time with feeding children, you're not going to get any results anyway, right? It's going to be all over the place because of what was going on with COVID. So he wants to avoid any academic research that shows that this is actually a real solution because he doesn't want it to continue. And I just think what is overriding all of this is this government's need to find $1 billion each year to give their rich landlord mates tax cuts. And that's the singular focus of this government. Where can we find that $1 billion for our rich tax mates? Where can we find that billion? And they're looking at taking it out of the mouths of children to put into the pockets of the wealthiest. And sweet Jesus, that's vile.
It is literally Superman villain kind of mentality,
right? This is how, and he likes this, and goes back to my original claim of just how bloody smart he is. And the left keep underestimating him. He's a remarkably dangerous politician who is going to be able to get through a remarkably dangerous agenda because Luxon just can't stop him,
It reminds me as well when I heard about the time frame that these school lunches have been going of the Māori Health Authority. They gave the Māori Health Authority 13 months and they went, no, can't see enough results right now, so we're canning it. I'm like, it was 13 months. Most people on a fucking weight loss, you hardly see much of a change in 13 months, let alone a whole system to try and bring up the people down the bottom. All right, let's play a bit more from... Now, remember the path so far. He's gone no evidence. Daniel Faitawa's gone, here's evidence. He's gone wrong evidence. What's going to come next is more evidence. Just keep listening.
It's getting to school and kids achieving. Now, it's a pity that we are inheriting a system where they spend $350 million without asking the basic questions. But that's what we've inherited, and that's what we now have to deal with.
But there is a study back in December 2023, an international PISA study, which Dr. Pippa McKelvey-Sebelo spoke about on RNZ. She said students who are missing meals are 2 to 4 years behind their peers in results.
And once again, we've got to raise the standards of debate here. It's certainly true that kids being well looked after, well nourished, are going to do better overall. But of course,
well, end of conversation.
No, it's not, because what he's really saying there is, of course, every child should be looked after, and it's the responsibility of the parents, not the state, but the parents. He's acknowledging, of course, feeding hungry children at school is working, but we shouldn't have to pay for it. That's where he's ideologically going. But he agrees filling hungry children's bellies with food is good for them all round, but why should the state pay for it?
Yep. And now we're about to get to the point that wraps us all up, where he's on wrong information. Now you're biased. Daniel Faitawa, you're biased.
Kids that are missing meals potentially have other problems in the home. So I just caution you. Clearly you're pretty keen to justify the spending regardless of how you do it.
No, I'm trying to get answers from you in terms of you saying that there's no evidence there. I'm asking you and telling you that there is evidence coming through. All right, you say, and I quote.
So there you go. So just as a reminder, and this is something we need to keep an eye on, I guess, with all politicians, but with ACT in particular and David Seymour, this is how it went. He said no data. Daniel Faitawa said, here's data. He said, not the right data. Daniel Faitawa said, oh, here's more data. He said, still not the right data, and you're biased. He basically called him a woke tard. So that's their thing. And just before we go on, I want to show you one other piece, because here's some more data. It's just some more, just because we'll put it out there. This is from Massey University. Found a range of benefits at Dannevirke High School since introducing free lunches 3 years ago. Students had better concentration, behaviour, engagement, and learning outcomes. This story's from today, by the way. Food insecurity also dropped, the study found. There was also a big drop in waste, such as plastic packaging from snacks that would be used to be brought to school. Thoughtfully planned school meal programs create environments that enable students to thrive, said researcher Associate Professor Chrissy Severinson, who I've just received an email from, and I think she'll be on later in the week. So there's more data on top of his. I get to do the more data when it comes to the your bias. So I'm the recourse to that, Marty.
There is, and we've seen evidence of this, and there's plenty of anecdotal evidence as well, that some of these school lunches aren't eaten. And where you dig into that, you see that it's a third party who is bringing food to the school. It's not the school. It's not the food that's being made on the schools, right? Because there are some schools who just have a third party turn up with pre-made lunches and they drop them off, and those ones are going to waste. Some of them, not all of them, some of them, right? The kids don't like this, don't like that. But the schools that have truly invested in it and have effectively their own kitchen and their own, setup, and parents are coming in to help, and they might have a school garden that they're taking food out of, you're not getting that kind of waste there. There is a culture of universality. Everyone comes together. Remember, feeding children at school by the state is not some fantastical idea that is completely out there. Australia does it, Britain does it, Canada does it, America does it. Most of the developed world that we compare ourselves with have states putting food into schools, because then you'll get the idea you've got to look after the kids and make them, hungry children don't learn. But here in New Zealand, this very nasty, very right-wing perspective has taken over, which says, no, it's the parents' fault. It's the parents' responsibility. Why am I paying for? And we get so selfish. And ACT are doing a remarkable job of harvesting that anger and that resentment. Why should I have to pay for other? And it's a bit nasty and it's a bit cruel, and it's going to take us backwards if we allow him to start chopping off 30 to 50. We need more schools to have breakfasts and lunches free, not less, more. We need to feed all the kids, not just some of the kids.
Yeah. And let me just say, because of the waste thing you're just talking about, even if that is all the case, they came out, they being NACDZ, came out yesterday saying 10,000 meals a day are going to waste. The Herald reports we're feeding 220,000 children. That's 4%. So even using their numbers, it's 4% waste. And that means this is a 96% accurate and on target program. And they're going to justify it by cancelling it over 4% waste.
4%, that's right. And so they want to focus on that 4%, when really the focus should be on the 96% that we're feeding. The 96%. You're going to not only throw the baby out with the bathwater, you're going to throw the entire kitchen and the bath out as well. I mean, and I think why we're seeing such a rush of blood to the head of this government. I mean, it's not just this; it's a blitzkrieg across a whole bunch of more submachine guns, for crying out loud. $2,300 per year off the disability benefit. 13,000 children to be pushed into poverty because of their tax cuts. I mean, it's just a never-ending, crazy cavalcade of right-wing ideas that don't have any basis in reality. It's just ideological brain farts, and they're just ramming these through as quickly as they can.
Yeah. We're going to continue on with some more of the story. You'll like something coming up shortly, Chewy, that I did last night, and Citizen Gold, I'll have an answer for you very, very shortly. Oh, that's kind of a bit spooky, and we'll figure out what's going on shortly. You will laugh, Marty, when I tell you what we did last night. You will laugh. I promise you will laugh. People who were here last night know what I'm talking about. But we'll do it at the end, because let's just continue on with Lex Luthor. David Seymour, talking about school lunches. So Daniel Faitau went back and he asked him a pretty straight up question. You're like, are there hungry kids going to school? That was the question, right?
Can I just ask you, do you acknowledge that we have children going to school hungry in New Zealand?
Well, there's no question about that, but that doesn't necessarily
so
mean that
what do you
the
intend
program...
to do about that?
Well, as I just said, Daniel,
No, continue, please.
My job is to take a scheme that has $350 million with a large amount of waste, with no evidence that it works, just peripheral, maybe it does somehow.
See, this is the thing that politicians do, and I'm going to talk about this when we come to Nicola Willis. He's repeating that thing that there's no research, even though he's just been cited to lots of research. He's saying there's a large amount of waste. See, what they want to do is they want that message to go out, and then his supporters can go, look at the waste. So they said 10,000 meals. Herald said 220,000 kids. They said 25 million, and we're being told now it costs 330 million to run. Now, 25 million is going to be about 8%, because 33 million would be 10%. So the difference between 4 and 8% is a pretty good, let's call it 6. Let's be fair and call it 6% waste. So there's not a lot of waste. If I could get everything in my fucking life 94% correct, I'd be living a pretty sweet... If I hit my targets for fitness and for finances and for, fuel use at 94%, I'd be doing pretty much okay. But they're just looking for an argument to can something, and they're using words that they want to continue on down their supporters' lines onto my fucking Twitter feed. Yeah. All right. We'll just get to the end of this and then we'll have a crack.
And actually design a scheme that targets the people who are most in need.
Sorry, one more thing. This is the other thing. We're going to get rid of it and design a scheme. What's your scheme going to be? Haven't thought of it yet. Don't know. But this is bad and we're going to do better. What's your one?
And you notice this language, we're focused on helping the worst. There's an ideological fight between the right and the left. The left says that we want these things to be universal, right? So there should be free breakfast and lunches in every school so that everyone can benefit. When we talk about free education, it's for everyone. When we talk about free health, it's for everyone. When we talk about welfare, It's for everyone. What the right wants to constantly do is say, oh, no, we're not going to fund universals because universals cost a lot of money. We will just take that money and put it on the worst case examples, and we'll put wraparound services with them, and that will solve this. This is one of the ideas behind the big investment model that they're trying to use with welfare at the moment. They don't want to provide universals. They just want to target it. And this constant fight over targeting, I think, is just bullshit, because the idea is to limit the total number of people you're supposed to be helping and just say, we're not helping anyone else. We're just focused on these worst cases. Yeah. And I think that is just an abdication of responsibility and our obligation to one another. Everybody in New Zealand deserves to have these access to these issues, right? Doesn't matter if you're a garbage man, doesn't matter if you're a doctor, doesn't matter if you're a nurse, doesn't matter if you're a teacher. Every single one of us in a complex society has to do our role and has to do our job, because if we didn't, society, the complexity would start falling over. If the garbage men don't turn up and take our garbage away every single week, after a while we'll get sick and the entire thing will collapse. So everyone has a role to play, and everyone has the right to gain the harvest of civil society, be that free education, free public health, free, the public holidays, safety, all of these. Everyone deserves to be able to enjoy that harvest. But the focus with the right is always about just targeting it. So as we're going after, we're going to help the most hungry children. Okay, so you're going to help the 50,000 most hungry children. What about the total 250,000? Well, those other 200,000 aren't our problem. So he's constantly trying to make it about the worst case scenario, and this is a sneaky way of lowering the total cost of the state.
Absolutely. Right, this has got about 50 seconds to go. There's one more point I want to make about Rimmer's thoughts today.
That stops waste and that ensures that the government can honestly look taxpayers in the eye and say, you worked hard for your money and we're using it to get good results. And my challenge to people in the education sector is to say, look, everybody knows money is tight right across the sector, actually in every government department. So are you really confident that $350 million has been used well, considering that it's been done at such a time when we've actually had worse NCEA results, worse student attendance, and the people who try and make the argument say, well, maybe we didn't do enough of it. Well, those people should be asking, has this program made a difference for the students that got it in terms of attendance and achievement? If we don't have that evidence, then maybe we need to go back to the drawing board, and that's exactly what the government's doing.
It's hilarious. He says it again, even if we don't have the evidence. So here's the thing, right? This is the last point I want to make about the conversation we just saw. We know from the research that hungry children fall behind. The National Act, New Zealand First Government, are very concerned about how far behind children are at school right now. And one of Seymour's ways of getting around that is to create more hungry children. So let's help these children get ahead and catch up by stopping feeding them, which will cause them, according to the research, to fall 2 to 4 years behind. It's just utterly ridiculous.
And it's also disingenuous. The reason they are going on this cost-cutting hunt is to find the $1 billion they need to make every single year in tax cuts for their rich landlord mates. Now, they're literally taking out of the mouths of children to put into the pockets of the rich, and they're telling you that's just normal, sensible government. This isn't normal. This is not moderate. This is extreme right-wing, nutty fantasy land stuff, and no one seems to have the courage to actually call them out on it.